One. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Frenemies. Joined, as always, by David Swor. I am DJ Cox. And David, today we have a very special guest. JJ Furmaniak is with us tonight. JJ, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah, DJ Dave, thanks for having me. Look forward to talking baseball, man. Looking forward to it.
Awesome, man. And if everybody out there doesn't know already, especially in the Chicago area here where we take a lot of pride in our past athletes, JJ was a Pittsburgh Pirate and an Oakland A in his time in the MLB. And we are going to get into that in depth later on in the show, but we're going to start real quick, David. David, the left side of your cheek looks a little pretty today. Did you get some A-Rod makeup by any chance?
I definitely did not get any A-Rod makeup. I had to suffer through, obviously this was the Yankees-Red Sox weekend. I wanted to poke both my eyes out the entire game that he was announcing, but DJ, it went great. We got to talk about a little bit of baseball here before we get into JJ's story. Yankees are sitting in that first wild card spot now, DJ. What do you think about that?
I can't believe it, man. About a week or two ago, we were talking about how they're done, they're toast, they didn't look good. The Blue Jays were on fire. The Red Sox, we already kind of thought were going to be in there. Now it's starting to look like the Yankees are in control of their own destiny, and they kind of are right now. And the Blue Jays are still right there, and there's a huge game tonight with the Mariners and the A's that's going to determine a lot of things too with those two ball clubs. So that wild card in the AL is looking pretty solid right now. Going to be a lot of fun winding down here. But David, you got to be happy with. And I don't know, man. And maybe I can ask you this, JJ. I've never seen anybody hit the ball harder than Giancarlo Stanton in my entire life. JJ, do you agree with that, or can you think of anybody else?
No, it's amazing. At the back end of my career, he was like up and coming 20, 21-year-old. And there's some stories of him in the minor leagues just hitting mammoth bombs. I mean, not only just batting practice, but like in-game mammoth bombs. And I can't remember his name. I'm not going to say original name, but didn't he go by a different name?
Oh, Mike, yeah.
Yeah, Mike, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So like that was like Mike Stanton, right? That was a big name coming. There's like 5 legendary guys over the last 15, 20 years during batting practices that minor league guys or big league guys that there's been stories about, like, you gotta watch this guy's batting practice. And he's one of the 5 guys. McGuire being obviously probably number 1. But you're getting into guys like Giancarlo Stanton was the one guy at 20 years old being like, you got to watch this guy's batting practice. And obviously look what he's done in the major leagues and, makes, $40 million. But yeah, he's big boy, man. Him and Judge are big, big boys. And TV doesn't even justify how big those guys are.
JJ, I got to ask you because me and I have an 8-year-old son and he tries to mimic everybody's batting stances and all this stuff. But what do you think about Giancarlo's swing? It's just, it looks awkward to me. Break that down for us.
Yeah. As a baseball, like, hitting guru type guy, his swing is a little bit unorthodox. It's a little bit more of down and across the body, right? So they compare to like other guys' swings more acting like a Ferris wheel effect, more of a circular effect. He's more down and across, but being that big and strong, you can kind of get away with some stuff, So his swings, obviously he's big, strong, muscular. Obviously, he's going to get from like point A to point B relatively ungodly quick. And he does cut across his body more than the average guy. But, he's ungodly hot, right? And he was hot this weekend. And
that's what I was going to say. When he's cold, he's the most frustrating hitter to watch. I'm a huge Yankee fan, obviously. But when he's hot, he is so much fun to watch, man. I was watching the game with the Grand Slam, which I believe was Saturday night. I 100% knew he was going to hit it. There was no doubt in my mind. And I can't remember the pitcher's name that grooved the fastball, and it was right down the middle. And it's off the bat, man. It's just so much fun. He's just so much fun to watch. But DJ, I didn't know if you realize it. I've been bashing on some of these guys part of the year, but Giancarlo's got like 36 homers now. Yep. Honestly, I didn't even realize it because he goes these stretches where he's so cold for so long. It's just crazy to me. Both he and Judge look like they're going to end up with 100 RBIs. I just wouldn't have thought that, a month ago. So it's been a lot of fun this last weekend.
It's ridiculous, man. I saw a stat where he holds the record for hardest hit ball in, I believe, 15 different major league parks. It's like, oh my goodness, man.
Insane.
It's may not be exactly 15, but it's close. I can't remember the exact number, but it's unbelievable. He's led them to the top of the wild card. That wild card is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And the other thing that we're going to keep an eye on too, everything else kind of seems to be wrapped up. There are 2 division races in the National League that are up for grabs. The Phillies are right on the Braves heels, and the Dodgers are right on the Giants heels. And there's a huge series coming up with the Braves and the Phillies to keep an eye on this week. And the Dodgers and Giants are going to battle it out too. And from the looks of it, it looks like the Giants have an easier schedule down the stretch here. And the collapse of the Padres has been finalized. What a awful season out of a team that we thought was going to get into the playoffs, and just completely went down. So JJ, where does your fandom lie nowadays as far as MLB goes?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Chicago, right? So I'm a big Cubs guy. And obviously it's unique year for the Cubs, right? We started off pretty good the first couple months, right? Then you had that terrible stretch before the All-Star break, which kind of was a major buzzkill for the whole team and organization. And then we all saw the kind of the writing on the wall. They dumped all those players. I don't know where it puts us at now. I mean, I don't know how many years it's going to take to rebuild, or they're going to go with this rebuild philosophy for a while. It's going to keep the fans kind of coming. And then I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. All I keep telling my dad, who is obviously a diehard Cubs fan, is like, they got it done in 2016, right? It would have been the worst scenario if they had these elite superstar players and they just didn't get it done in that stretch. So take it for what it was. They got it done in 2016. From here on, they got to figure out what they're going to do moving forward in regards to young players, trades, getting rid of some salary. But I'm a Cubs guy, but I do follow. I will check in on like the MLB app, Pittsburgh, Oakland, just to kind of see if there's any old coaches, or I don't think there's too many players left from back in the day when I was around, but I do follow those guys. Obviously, Pittsburgh's been in a major funk for many years. They had a stretch when they were against the Cubs in like 15 and 16. They had a little bit of a stretch run back end of McCutchenson's career. And I forgot who some of the other players were, but they had a little bit of a stretch there where they were competitive, but it's been a while for Pittsburgh, and Oakland's always in the mix somehow. I don't know how they get it done, but they're always in the mix with young athletic players, no pun intended, but they get it done somehow.
So JJ, I've got to ask, why no White Sox love? I mean, they're from Chicago as well. They're winning the division. I just got to know.
Yeah, and I love baseball too. So like I'm excited for the White Sox, to be honest. Like I love baseball. Obviously, Cubs have always been my team as a kid. Big Ryan Sandberg fan, big Sean Dunston fan, Jerome Walton, just games that I had watched when I was younger. Kind of goes with your parents sometimes, right? It goes hand in hand sometimes when your dad is watching. But I like the White Sox. I mean, they got young talent. They can hit. They got great pitching. They have this charismatic. I mean, that Field of Dreams game was awesome, right? My son loves the Yankees. Yep. I enjoy watching the White Sox and their young players. Anderson's a studded shortstop. He's an elite hitter. So it's fun to watch, like, good young ball players, high energy ball players. Abreu's like, and he's an elite hitter, right? Like that guy can probably play for 5 more years and he's going to rake in 100 RBIs, 25 home runs plus. So it's kind of fun to watch those. I'm cheering for the White Sox. I hope the White Sox win. I think it's great for baseball and great for Chicago. So I'm a big fan of anything that can draw people to try to watch baseball. So if we can get one of these two teams to be competitive and kind of get into the playoff run and get to the World Series, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think DJ threw up in his mouth a little bit. He was struggling there. I've been a White Sox lover from the beginning of the year. When the Yankees fell out, I had the White Sox to hold on to, and it was nice beating DJ over the head with it.
Yeah.
So, I did look up, guys. I was making fun of David here. JJ, I was saying that, we probably can get on there and get $5 tickets to sit front row when the playoffs come around. But I did look the other day, they're probably going for like 80 to sit up high. So they're going to be expensive. But, I'm going to look into that as we get closer and we actually see what day that's going to happen, where they come back here from Houston. And, we'll see. Obviously, Nicole and Lindsay would absolutely love that. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. And I'm not going to be that guy, JJ. And like you said, though, if I ended up going to a White Sox playoff game, I wouldn't cheer against them. I wouldn't cheer for them. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't. I wouldn't be that guy that would want to get beat up in the stands. So I'd kind of keep it down and mellow and just sit back and watch baseball.
Yeah.
AJ, did you know that DJ was a coach for the White Sox for a minute? I mean, that's an untold fact that everybody should know. I've seen DJ in a White Sox jersey, so.
Oh, yeah, I did do a lot of the Bull Sox Academy training in the White Sox uniforms. You had to put it on, JJ, and I felt dirty all the time when I get home, man. It wasn't right, and of course there were people taking pictures of that, and, the rest is history. These guys run with it, so.
I hear you, man. I hear you.
That's awesome, man. Well, JJ, we're going to kick it off, man. We're going to get right going into your career here, man. Once again, we appreciate you coming on, and so, David, we're going to kick it off with the beginning years here for JJ. So kind of talk a little bit about when you were a little kid. And, you mentioned your dad already in this podcast. So I kind of think I know where you're going with this. But who got you into baseball when you were a kid?
Yeah, I was fortunate. I mean, my dad was a huge baseball fan. I have an older brother that's 5 years old. So I always was following his curtail in regards to playing baseball, being in the streets, playing wiffle ball. Playing sandlot ball, right field close type baseball stuff with my friends. We always would get together during the summers, meet at the field at 9:00. My mom would have to yell down the street at dusk to kind of get me back in the house. I was just an outdoor rat. I loved baseball. I loved all sports, to be honest, but baseball was like my thing, right? Just really enjoyed it, enjoyed being around kids. So that was kind of me growing up. Dad was a big baseball fan. We'd go see Cubs games. We'd go see White Sox games too. And then that's kind of where the passion came. As a kid, you played outdoors. We all just had Little League back then. We had Little League All-Stars, right? So I was a pretty solid player, nothing crazy, nothing like, I wasn't a big kid. I'm still at this time right now, like 5'10", 5'11". So back in the day, I was still like a little rug rat, just playing ball, enjoying the game. Just kind of worked my way up, playing, got into high school. Nothing crazy. Played freshman year, played sophomore year. Wasn't like a sophomore in varsity or anything. Got the junior year, mid 300s maybe junior year. And then my senior year, just because I was also a football player at Bolingbrook High School, kind of got into more like physical fitness and kind of weight training, just because that's kind of the route that football players at high schools really do. We have a good camaraderie and kind of got stronger. And then that kind of like excelled me on the baseball field, where I had a really good senior year at Bolingbrook High School. Kind of was an all conference player. I was hitting against some good competition. Played the Andrews of the area, the Lockports of the area, the Revises and Stags and the Oak Lawns in the area. So it was respectable competition. So it kind of made my name for myself my senior year. And then as we get going after that, I was fortunate to go to Lewis University and play baseball there.
Yeah. So JJ, you already talked about this a little bit, but I kind of wanted to pick your brain on something here. And you talked about how you took off your senior year, and you were in high school the same time I was. And I remember you from high school because I was one of those guys that would just want to know who all the talent was from around the area. And, like you said, you kind of came out of nowhere in high school there. And it's a great story. It really is. And like you said, I mean, me and you, we're not the biggest guys in the world, but, if you get out there and you play the game of baseball and you play it hard, anything can happen, man. I think you're a great poster child for that exact thing, man. And you just got the most out of everything you have, which is unbelievable and gives everybody out there an opportunity, a chance. If you work hard and you get in the weight room and you do things that JJ did, your career can totally take off, man. And that's a great story there. So one of the things I noticed about your high school career at Bolingbrook, 4 different head coaches on varsity in 4 years. That had to, first of all, be really hard to get adjusting to a different coach every year. Not really sure what happened there. Obviously, you can maybe talk to us a little bit about, the differences there. And you guys struggled a little bit in the high school years, but I'm sure it was a lot of fun regardless. I'm not trying to say that was bad, but for you to come out of that, even more of a great story, because you had 4 different head coaches and to actually land in college out of that. So what happened there?
Yeah, and I don't even. Bolingbrook's a big high school football program, right? So we're known for football. Even this is going back 80s and 90s and early 2000s. Basketball is obviously a strong program too. Baseball was always on the back burner. We just didn't have a good group of baseball players in the Bolingbrook area, right? I don't think anything had to do with the coaches not being good or bad. I just think there had to be with administration and just kind of turnover of young teachers, right? So these were young coaches coming in, and it just happened to be there was a stretch where things had to be changed, and you're an educator too. So like it just happened to be these guys were in the bottom of the total pool that when it came to like cuts, unfortunately, these guys were first or second year in, and those guys got removed, right? My last coach, and I saw you put the list, and I totally forgot some of these names. Who was the last guy I had senior year? I know you made the list right there.
Jason Zarniak or Zarniak.
Yeah, Zarniak. So there's a history with his name. So his dad was a legendary coach at Revis High School, and I think Revis High School's field is actually named after him. And I'm not sure how long he stayed after that, but he was a guy who obviously my senior year was a really good baseball guy. Those other guys, I can't even remember just because I've been around so many coaches, but I do remember him my last year because he came in trying to he had a lot of history, right? His dad was a legendary coach at Revis High School. So me being very raw in baseball, I played baseball my whole life, but it was nice to have a coach that had a track history of family that was high school coach, right? So that kind of confusing year, senior year, who's our coach? He came in, his dad was around every now and then to kind of help things out. So you just a little bit more respect in regards to who the coach was when we didn't know who our coach was going to be. So great guy, kind of flourished under him. I played shortstop. I pitched a lot. Just kind of guy that's let me be, right? Junior year, coach was fine. I don't remember exactly that year, but I remember senior year, really nice guy, good baseball history, great family baseball. So that was good to kind of have a coach like that.
That's awesome, man. So going right off of that, so your senior year, you said you took off, had a really good year that year. So talk to us a little bit about, were there offers coming in from other colleges? You did end up deciding on Lewis, as you said there. Lewis University is in Romeoville. You decided to go there, which is obviously really close to home. But, were there any other offers, and did you decide, maybe I should go here, maybe I should go there? So talk us through that process as a senior.
Yeah, I'd say my number one other potential commitment that I did get offer a respectable scholarship to go play was UIC. So I last minute was deciding between those two schools. I felt like UIC, just for me as a baseball player, was probably just too big for me at that moment, right? I just didn't know if I was ready to be in that Division I atmosphere. I was physically decently enough to probably compete, but I felt like I just needed another year of blossom. Kind of was on campus, very good school, right? So obviously trying to figure out if I could even hang academically too, right? Because it's a very challenging school. They put you through the ringer. Looking back, it'd have been kind of a unique situation because I would have kind of matched up with Curtis Grandison. So I think around my junior year, Curtis might have been around there. So that'd have been kind of a cool combination to possibly, if I developed the way I developed at Lewis at UIC, if we both played together. But I chose Lewis because Lewis had a great history of baseball, right? So in the 80s, in the 90s, Lewis was always super competitive. NAIA, they eventually kind of went to Division II. They were very competitive there. So it was no slack going to Lewis. They were getting guys seen locally. Guys had a chance to move on. Ernie Young being a guy. Rick Heisman was a guy there too. So they had guys that were really good ball players. Guys were getting seen by scouts. So that was one main reason. Lewis had a great program, was local. I knew I wanted to kind of keep some costs down. I wasn't getting much money out of Lewis, but I knew I could stay home for that first half semester and save some money for room and board. So I stayed at home my first semester, just went to school, did some classes, and then had an opportunity to showcase my skills in the fall. And then kind of a cool story. So we go to our spring break at Lewis University, playing some JV ball, hitting the ball really good, get a chance to play about 3 to 4 varsity games at Lewis. Finish off about 6 for 15 on the spring break. Come back, the very first conference game we play, I get a chance to start, and I hit 3 home runs in that game, and the rest is history. I played
nice
for the rest of the 3 years that I was there. So kind of cool. I had that opportunity to come back, play our first conference game at Lewis, 3 home runs, stayed in the lineup for the rest of my career.
That's amazing, man. And to have a breakout game like that where you take off, I mean, anything like that can happen. That's so awesome. And you already mentioned this, JJ, and I talk to my guys about this all the time as a coach. It doesn't matter where you go to college. As far as if you've got it, they will find you. And me and David played at an NAIA school as well. And, we had 2 or 3 guys that we played with that ended up get drafted and end up playing minor league ball. It doesn't matter. If you love it, if you're good enough, you don't necessarily go D1 and they don't draft all the players from D1 at all. So it's not anything close to that. You can be found anywhere you're at. And I got to ask you this too, JJ, though. You talked about UIC. Is there a better backdrop as far as the outfield looking out from home plate at USC's field than there is at Kurtz Granson Field.
That place is awesome. And that was one thing, man. I was like, this field is awesome. I would love to play here Friday night, Saturday night. So it was tough not to decide to go to UIC, but it all worked out for the best. I had a great opportunity to play at Lewis, played some great summer ball at Quincy, Illinois, a nice little, what they call the CICL league. So I wouldn't have changed the decision, but that is a beautiful stadium, man. That would have been really cool to play there. I never actually ever played there, but I went there on like a little recruiting visit and watched the guys kind of work out and stuff. I'm like, this is like as good as it gets. Beautiful stadium.
Very true, man. So, which kind of leads us to our next part here. Talk about the moment we all dreamed of as a kid, but never received, and you obviously did. So, the San Diego Padres drafted you in the 22nd round of the 2000 draft. Who called you? How did you find out? What did you do when that moment came, man?
Yeah, so Dave, you might like this. So I get a phone call in the 14th round, and it goes, "Hey, JJ Furmaniak." I said, "Yes." He's like, "This is the New York Yankees. We're going to take you in the 16th round here. Is that okay with you?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." You know, I mean, you're talking about the New York Yankees, right? So Dad's a big baseball fan. The history of the New York Yankees, like, am I going to get drafted here by the New York Yankees in the 16th round? So I'm waiting, right? So at this time, we don't even have, so at our house, we still have dial-up internet, right? So we're not on the internet watching the draft because we need to have the phone line open. We don't have cell phones at this point. And this is kind of weird. This is only 2000, right? We just didn't have cell phones then. So we're not following the draft. We need to keep the phone line open. So 16th round come, 17th, I don't get a phone call from the Yankees, right? So then the draft is over. So I was kind of projected, and projections are projections, between this like 8th and 12th round was kind of like a random projection, right? I didn't expect 8th to 12th round. I didn't really care. I didn't care if I got drafted really the first day. I didn't care if I got drafted the second. I just wanted to get drafted. Like, I was such a baseball rat. Like, for me to have the opportunity to put on a professional baseball uniform, it was a dream of mine as a kid. But as you keep going in high school and you get into college, you know, those realities keep coming down more and more that may not be a possibility. But when I got to college and I was a very productive ball player, there was a, right? So then, man, I took my workouts from like 100 miles per hour to like 200 miles per hour. I mean, I was like a gym rat, like, meaning I would wake up before college classes and hit off the tee by myself. When kids were like hanging out with each other in their dorm rooms, I'd go to the field house and I'd throw a ball against the wall. I'd set up a tennis ball machine and take grounders, and I'd hit more. And guys would just kind of follow my lead, right? So like sometimes one guy would come with me in the morning, another guy would come with me at nighttime. I would go run on a track with like a parachute. So random guys would follow me, right? Just because I had a small maybe opportunity to get drafted. First goal was to be the best college player at Lewis. That was my first goal ever. And then the next reality was maybe I can get drafted. So going back to the draft, don't get drafted day one. As soon as day one's over, I'm getting all these phone calls from like the Oakland Athletics, the New York Mets, the San Diego Padres, and they're all like, "What is it going to take for you to come out of Lewis if we draft you?" I'm like, "Just pay for my last semester of school or my last year of school. Like, I want to play baseball. If you draft me, just pay for my last year of school and I'll show up the next day." That's how much I was like devoted to being a professional baseball player. Next day comes, it's kind of weird. I don't really like, there was a storm that night. So someone randomly calls us, not the scout that was scouting me for the Padres. Someone says, someone calls us, say, "Hey, congratulations, Jake got drafted." We're like, "How did you find this out?" They're like, "Well, it's online, but we can't be online because we have dial up," right? So long story short, I find out from like a family friend that I got drafted 22nd round. Later, about an hour or two later, the scout call said, "I apologize. There was a storm. All our phones were out. We drafted you 22nd round. We know you're just looking for your school paid. Here's the offer. Let's do it." I'm like, "Let's do it." So that's how it worked out. Had a chance at the Yankees. They called me, which is a cool story. Don't get drafted day one. Day two is 20 to like 40th round, get picked up to 22nd round. But like I said, it didn't really matter where I was getting drafted. They were going to get a bulldog when I showed up, and that's kind of what happened.
So I've got to ask, did you ever find out why the Yankees didn't take you?
No, but I'm kind of like glad I didn't, because there's a guy named Derek Jeter who played shortstop for the Yankees.
That would have changed things.
So that wouldn't have really worked that well.
I didn't even think of that. That's a good point, man.
But I mean, just to even be part of the Yankees would be kind of cool, but I'm glad it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But you never know. You just never get that information why it didn't happen. But they did call. They just said, hey, it's the 14th round now. We have the 16th round pick. We're looking to take you. Would you sign with the New York Yankees? We'll pay for your schooling. This would be the small bonus that we're offering. I'm like, let's do it. And I never got the call back,
That's crazy.
But I wasn't even worked up. I'm like, as soon as the draft was over and then I started getting the other teams calling me, I'm like, there's major league teams that are calling me right now that are interested in like drafting me, and it sounded like 3 or 4 of these teams that called me, like they were going to take me. So I was like, not really bummed too much that I didn't get drafted first day. I just knew that I was going to get that opportunity. And to this day, it was a pretty cool moment just with the phone systems and being on dial up and the Yankees calling me and I'm not getting drafted by the Yankees and then getting picked up by the Padres was a great experience, man. It was awesome.
So I've got to ask this as well. So your dad is a huge baseball guy. What was his reaction?
Just by getting drafted by the Padres or by the?
Well, I mean, he was drafted. Period. I mean, I can't even imagine. Honestly.
Yeah, my parents were proud, man. I mean, like I said, like I'm sure you guys were too. Like I was your typical like outdoor kid rat, man, that just got out there when the sun rose. And I had to be dragged in the house because I was either playing baseball or wiffle ball. I'm talking about like I'm creating my own like baseball fields. I'm digging up dirt, bringing sand from like a park, riding my bike and like having these buckets. I'm falling over just to make like a home plate, right? Just to like simulate that I'm on a major league field. So having a son now, I couldn't imagine what they felt back then. When you're in that early 20s, you're like stubborn and stuff, but like having a son and then watching your son play like youth baseball and then eventually kind of get to that point where they got drafted, and then fast forward, got to play in the major leagues for goodness sake. But like, I couldn't imagine like being in that moment as a father. So they were super proud. They were excited. And for me, I was like, let's get to work, so like, I was like enjoying the moment, but in my mind I was like, wow, I'm going to be a professional baseball player. Like, so I was like so excited about that as opposed to like, soaking in the moment. We did enjoy it, but still I was excited to kind of move on and give myself a chance to be a great A-ball player. That was my goal. Be the best player I can be H level.
That's awesome. Absolutely amazing, man. That gets me every time, man. Like, just wow. That's just like the greatest thing in the world to like have your dad, like you said, if that ever happened to one of our kids, like just the feeling. I can only imagine how your dad felt and how you were feeling. And you're exactly right about that. I think, David, we can totally relate to JJ there. Like, if me and you would have got drafted, it's kind of been the same thing. Like, let's go to work. But the dad perspective of that is completely different from the player. And that makes total sense on how that worked out for you. That's exactly how it would have been with me if that ever happened. So, JJ, did you know, and I think I brought this up to you and you probably know it now, but did you know before I told you that your future Pirates teammate, Jason Bay, was drafted 4 spots ahead of you in the 2000 draft? Some scouts lost their job over missing out on you two. I'll just tell you that right now. So 16 of the first round picks in your draft did not play in the show. 16. I'll say that again. That just shows you how the draft goes. A guy named Mike Stodolka was drafted 4th overall that year. Didn't even come close, man. It goes to show you, man, the scouts get it wrong all the time. So two-part question there. Number one, did you know Jason went the same round so close to you? And, did you really, I mean, you already said you didn't really care what round it was, but talk about Jason a little bit.
Yeah, great ball player. I mean, obviously, I knew he was pretty close to being drafted next to me. I didn't know it was that close, in the same round. That guy was awesome, right? I mean, probably maybe 10 years in the major leagues, handful of all-stars. I had opportunity to play with him. And I'm not lying. When I played with him for that 1 month of September, the guy got like 2 hits every game. I thought he was like the greatest hitter ever, right? And then he ultimately had a great career, but like the guy could like flat out hit. And he don't look much different than Dave. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like he was Aaron Judge up there or Giancarlo Stanton. Like the guy could just flat out rake, man. Great hitter. And then just kind of going over that whole draft, it's weird, man. When I got into pro ball, I was initially overwhelmed because I'm playing with guys that went to like Tulane, LSU, Stanford. I'm like, I just was watching you guys in the College World Series, right? And then we start playing. I'm thinking these guys are like ungodly elite players, right? And then we start playing. I'm like, you guys are not much better than I am, right? And we're like very close to being similar players. And then I think just kind of that bulldog work ethic just took me over the top of those guys that got drafted in the first round, the second round. Those guys get a large amount of money, and we all see it. They call them bonus babies, right? And they kind of filter out. I mean, they can set themselves up for a long time with some financial gains, but they don't necessarily always put in that work ethic. So they give chances like myself and Jason Bay to be late draft guys that kind of just put in that extra effort, and then you just kind of jump over those Division I Stanford guys or LSU guys, or those guys are just kind of like maxed out, right? They just sometimes back in the day, it's different nowadays. Back in the day, guys might get drafted on potentially like projectability, right? And then some guys would get drafted just because they were at Stanford, right? So some of those guys were already like maxed out of what they can bring to the table, right? Where some of the guys were in the later rounds, they could potentially work their way up to be good, solid ball players. So a lot of, Division I guys come from big universities. They weren't much better than me who went to Division II. And like you said earlier, like there's guys that get drafted out of NAA, Division III. Just when you get in that melting pot, it's the survivor of the fittest, man. You can get knocked out in 1 year, or you can kind of keep plugging away and kind of just go up the ranks every couple of years and get a chance to be in the major leagues. That's what happened to me. I got a chance, tough opportunities. It's not the easiest thing once you get there, but I had my chances, which is the really good kind of feeling.
Yeah, so Sudoku, man, getting drafted 4th overall, like you were saying, he's set financially for the rest of his life, and that man did not step on a major league field. So good for him in one term, but I mean, come on, the 4th pick in the draft, like you like you said, man, some of these guys just don't put, whether it's not putting the work in, whether they were just overhyped, whatever. It just blows my mind, JJ, like how much they miss out on guys, and how, Mike Piazza was the last pick, in the draft, and he's a Hall of Famer, and it's just like, it doesn't matter where you get drafted to, like we talked about. It doesn't matter where you go to college. It doesn't matter where you get drafted either, in what round. If you're gonna fight through it and do what you did, man, that's what I love about your story so much, man. Is like so much was against you, JJ, but everything that was against you, you worked that much harder to overcome that, and to eventually, obviously, do great things and make it all the way to the show, man, which is unbelievable. So JJ, in 2000, you immediately tore up the minors, getting one of your 3 minor league all-star games that year, and batting .343 with a .446. I'll say that again, .446 on base percentage, which is awesome. 5 bombs, 38 ribbies in just 62 games that year. So what was minor league ball like for a 20-year-old guy? You're facing, the daily life of a minor leaguer for the first time in the lovely state of Idaho, of all places. So talk about that, man, your first year of pro ball.
Oh, wow. So think of Bull Durham on the bus, okay? That's what it was, man. And I loved it, right? So we had no air conditioning in our bus. The bus was very similar to Bull Durham, right? So I'm walking into this minor leagues thinking professional baseball is something, knowing the movie of Bull Durham. Our bus, no air conditioning, 2 guys per seat. There was no guitar playing by Crash Davis in the back. You have the Latin music in the background, right? So this is almost pre-headphones almost, So guys are blasting their, mini boom boxes back there. So that's the travel life of baseball, right? So that's you traveling from city to city. And in that Pioneer League that I played in the Pacific West, you're talking about 8-hour trips, So you're like next to a 20-year-old, right? You're trying to sleep on each other. You got no air conditioning. You got the windows half open. I'm not joking. Our bus broke down at least 2 times that year. And we're talking about it's middle of summer. So we were hurting, but I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. And it was like awesome, right? Just because like, this is what I saw in the movie Bull Durham, and this is actually happening right now. So that was like the travel life and the outside of the baseball life. And then just the game, I loved it, right? I love getting at the ballpark at like 3:00. I love the batting practice. I love, we used to have these guys, they call them rovers, right? So it's called an infield rover for the organization. So they would come in like every couple of weeks. They would specifically take you on the field at like 2:30 to work on your defense, right? So, I didn't know the guy. He might have had some like AAA like coaching experience and played back in the day, but these specific coaches would come for infielders, hit your grounders. So you're getting like 100 grounders before batting practice. Batting practice happens. The pitchers are hitting you grounders, right? Just everything to try to like get your game to be top notch. And this is like the lowest level. This is rookie ball in Idaho. And then I was fortunate that I made a name for myself. That was probably the best thing I could have done for myself, because I had some bad seasons also, but it allowed me to showcase that I had a skill set, and they gave me the foundation to struggle the next year. I had a tough year the next year, because then I went to A-ball. Then it was like, wow, that guy's throwing like an 82 mile per hour slider. I never saw that before, right? This guy's pumping 93. I never saw that too often. So there was a major adjustability that next year, but I just loved getting to the field early, taking batting practice. Rick Renneria was my coach one year in 2003. And he told me, he's like, you need to, he liked me a lot. He loved me. And I actually would go to the stadium at White Sox and kind of meet up with him a couple times a year, bring my son out there. He'd get us on the field. So we had an awesome relationship. He told me, like, go to the batting cage every single day, because you'll never know what you might find to be a Major League Baseball player. So this is 2003. He's kind of the hitting coach. He had some, I don't know if he was in the major leagues at all. He might've been with the major leagues with the Marlins as like a coach, but at that time he came back to the minor leagues and he said, go to the batting cage every day. You never know what you're going to find to become a major league player. And by the end of the year, he's like, listen to me. He's like, I'm going to tell you this to your face. I've seen a lot of guys like, you are a Major League Baseball player. Keep going at it. So stuff like that from coaches just kept my confidence high, knowing that a guy who's seen a lot of baseball in his lifetime, giving me the confidence to just keep going at it. You can do this. You are a major league type player. Just stay focused. Going to have some rough days. Keep positive. You'll be in good shape. So some good stories like that.
Man, David, I know me and you have talked a lot about Rick Renneria, and it's cool that you bring that up, JJ. I mean, he's an awesome coach, and what kind of a terrible thing happened to him. Like when he's building the Cubs up, they start to get close, and then he gets replaced. You know, and the White Sox, he goes to them, and then he's building up, and he gets replaced again, you know. And he seems like you said, everything you said positive about him, I've always said he seems like the greatest guy that there is, and he's very connected with the Spanish players as well, you know, and obviously connects with all of his players, man. But that's really cool that you said that. I feel terrible for him from a coaching standpoint, for just like those two teams that he got so close and got it kind of taken away from him, so that the organization can kind of just bring in somebody else to take over and then win the World Series with the Cubs and do what the White Sox are doing now. But man, that's a really cool story. And Renneria seems like a really good dude. So yeah, very good stories, man. And
awesome.
That's cool, man. So speaking of the 2003 season you just talked about, JJ, you get on fire that year and get promoted to Double-A. So at the Double-A level, now you gotta correct me if I'm wrong here, but once you get there, are you thinking to yourself, now this is like a reality? This could be a possibility because I'm at Double-A. Like this is very possible now because I'm at this level. Did you get that feeling when you got promoted to Double-A? You had a 301 average that year with 65 ribbies that year, which was awesome.
Yeah, you know, there's in the minor leagues, man, they say once you get to Double-A, it's a whole nother game, right? Because you're condensing guys from rookie ball, A ball, and high A. So now you're like really filtering out, and now you get the cream of the crop. But when I got to Double-A, there was some ungodly nasty pitching. I mean, I'm talking about like some sweeping sliders. So it was not even more of like, I'm close to the major leagues. It's like, can I survive? Because most of the players would just die out in Double-A because it was so hard, right? Our Double-A with the San Diego Padres was in Mobile, Alabama. So you're talking about like 95 degrees every single day with like 100% humidity. So the best ball that you two guys ever hit to left field would die in short left field. That's how bad the humidity was, you know? So like, even when you were like hitting balls good, like even if you got it all, it wouldn't go over the outfielders' heads, right? So you're talking about humidity. You're talking about like ungodly relief pitchers coming in with hard fastballs, nasty sweeping sliders. I actually kind of got lucky to survive Double-A. I got called up to Double-A like July 1st in 2003. In like my first 7 games, I got hit in the hand by like a 95 mile per hour fastball and actually chipped a small bone in my hand. So I missed like the next 4 weeks or so, right? I didn't have to go into cast, no surgery, missed 4 weeks, came back and finished that Double-A season and probably had about 150 at bats. And I actually held my own, where there was times where I was like middle of the lineup type hitter, right? So I was just kind of hot in AA. So then 2004 comes around. I start in AA and kind of like have a rough start. I'm talking about 50 at bats, maybe like 10 for 50. Got lucky, hit like one, like, opposite field grand slam. So a couple home runs. And then someone in AAA got hurt. But I had value in that AA season the year before where it was condensed to like 150 at bats where I held my own. And then that spring training in 2004 had a nice spring training. So they felt confident in bringing me up to AAA in 2004. And then when I got up there, I got hot. Like the first 3 weeks I was hot and they just didn't want to send me down. So I was so fortunate that I only had to do AA for about a month and a half, which is not really heard of. If I had to do it for 4 to like 5 months, it would have been tough, man. I'm not gonna lie, because it travels tough, weather's tough, and like you said, you're like knocking on the door of major leagues, but the pitchers are what are really good, because a lot of those guys can go from AA to the major leagues. A lot of AAA guys are just, back then it was like old school guys that were like just pitchers, and it's like 86 to 88, maybe some movement, different stuff. But AA was like heat and sliders. At that time, AA can be as competitive as, the major leagues. I'm not gonna say AA is the major leagues, but that was a tough league for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, that's very true, man. I could totally see AA being tougher in a lot of aspects than AAA, as I've always thought that. And that's a great point on your and so, man, the story gets even better. In 2005, your dream comes true, man. And I'm getting chills talking about this. It's very interesting how this happened to you, JJ. So you get traded from the Padres to the Pirates for current Cubs manager David Ross. Can you tell me now, looking back on that, and how cool it was that David Ross opened the door basically for you to go to the Pirates and make it to the majors? So talk a little bit too about blocked at the Padres a little bit and going to the Padres' new opportunity, or Pirates' new opportunity. Just talk about that whole experience, man.
Yeah, in 2005, the Padres were a pretty strong team, right? They got into the playoffs in 2005. They had a lot of like veterans, right? They had the likes of Ryan Klesko. They had the likes of Phil Nevin. Their shortstop was Khalil Green, who was drafted like a couple years. So I was drafted in 2000. He was drafted in like 2003, I think, right? First round in 2003. So he was already in the big leagues. But I was holding my own in AAA. I had an awesome 2004 season, was having a productive 2005 season. Early in the year, there were some different injuries in the Padres. I didn't have any major league experience, but the Padres had like Damian Jackson, who had 5 or 6 years in the major leagues. So he was a middle infielder. So they called him up. They had Eric Young. I don't know if you remember that name. Eric Young was a middle infielder for us. He got called up. We also had Jesse Garcia, who was with the Braves in the playoffs. So were so good in 2004 that in 2005, they had Khalil Green as their shortstop, but they also needed some veteran depth in the middle infield, just in case Khalil Green didn't work out. You then can bring up guys that have some major league experience. So I was like 3rd or 4th on the totem pole just based off experience, but I was also on the roster. Well, now fast forward to July, I'm like extremely hot. I'm doing really good in AAA. Actually, probably too good, because then I get traded for David Ross, right? I'm not even thinking. One thing I learned in the early minor leagues, and I think this is great for all athletes, especially baseball, you can't worry so much about other players, right? If you get, especially nowadays with like the Twitters and the PBRs and the rankings, you can't get overwhelmed on what that player is doing or what that player is not doing, because you really have to like look in the mirror and be productive as your own ball player. So I was never like following Khalil Green and is he striking out or is he making errors? I knew that he would be a ball player. If I could be the best ball player I could be with the Padres, or somebody else may like me, right? So that helped me out, that I wasn't overly overwhelmed that Khalil Green was in the major leagues before I was. The guy went to Clemson. He was the Golden Spikes Award winner, 1st round draft pick. Of course he's going to have the right. He ended up being a great major league player, but I wasn't too consumed with what he was doing on a regular basis. I needed to perform in AA. I needed to perform in AAA. They always told us you never know who you're playing for. There was always scouts to games. Get traded to the Padres, right? Or get traded to the Pirates. I don't know much about David Ross. Nowadays, the story is awesome, right? That I got traded for David Ross, who fast forward, I don't know, 6 years later, or no, fast forward like 10 years later is what the Chicago Cubs hitting a home run in the World Series, right? That's an awesome story there. I didn't know much about David Ross besides He had 4 to 5 years in the major leagues. Ramon Hernandez, I don't know if you know some of these names. Ramon Hernandez used to be the starting catcher for the Padres. He broke his hand. Padres were in the playoffs. They needed a veteran catcher. Ross was with the Pirates. I was with the Padres. 1-for-1 trade. Kind of a cool story because I got traded for David Ross,
Very cool.
So I get going to the Pirates. Well, they also have great middle infielders too. They got Jack Wilson. They got Freddie Sanchez. They got another Latin guy who played middle infield. So it wasn't necessarily I was in a better situation. As soon as I get traded, Khalil Green breaks his hand.
Oh.
1 week later, I would have been my AAA man or Padres. I would have been in the major league. So I'm getting traded from San Diego, who I was with for 5 years. I go to Pittsburgh. Khalil Green breaks his hand. My AAA manager for the Padres calls me. He's like, "You would have been the next call up." So I'm like, did I lose a lottery ticket here? But then I was fortunate that I was very productive in AAA with the Pirates, and then I eventually get a September call up with the Pirates.
So talk me through that call or talk that you finally made it to the pros. Who told you to get on the plane and go to the Pirates? That had to be awesome too.
So I'm in AAA with the Pirates, and we're now in the playoffs, right? So it's now September 10th or 11th, right? So the team I was with, the Indianapolis Indians, we're in the AAA playoffs, and we just finished the game, right? So they haven't called anybody up because a lot of times they'll keep a playoff team together in AAA unless they want to see 1 or 2 particular players, right? It could be a really good pitcher, So if they're going to call up a group of players, they usually wait till after the playoffs, unless it might be just 1 or 2 individuals, depending on what the team needs. Game's over. It's a best of 3 series. It's the second game. We're in Toledo. I'm downstairs, just kind of having a late dinner or whatever. Get a phone call from the trainer. So the trainer's actually downstairs. I don't think I have my cell phone on me. So the trainer's downstairs. He hands me the phone. It's the head coach for our AAA Indianapolis Indians. He's like, "You're not gonna believe this, man. You're going to the major leagues." I'm like, "Get out of here." He's like, "No, Jack Wilson's banged up. They want you up there." So I was like, I kind of my jaw dropped, to be honest. It was totally unexpected, right? I didn't know where I would be fitting in regards to when I get called up, because September 1st was already gone, right? So, you're thinking maybe September call up, or we might go to the AAA World Series, which is another week. So totally unexpected. In the hotel lobby, get on the phone, call my parents, tell them that I'm getting called up. I get a chance the next day to fly to St. Louis. I go into the clubhouse. I'm there about 2 o'clock by the time I land and stuff. I look on the lineup, and I'm starting that day.
Nice.
So I'm like, all right, I'm starting. Cool. Well, first I go to my locker first, and I'm like, all right. I look over there, and I'm like, I'm number 66. I'm like, that's the coolest thing. The greatest player in Pittsburgh history is Mario Lemieux, and I'm 66. I'm like,
oh yeah.
This is awesome. I'm like, that's a great number. I'm cool with this number, So obviously then I see the starting lineup, introduce myself to the manager. So then I'm getting ready in my locker, and I see Jason Bay and Freddie Sanchez watching a video monitor. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Man, we're facing Chris Carpenter tonight. I'm like, all right. And Chris Carpenter's 20-2 at this point. He's got a 2.5 ERA. I'm like, all right. What do you got? They're like, man, he's got a nasty slider, a really good 12-6 curveball. He's got this nasty 2-seamer. I'm like, does he throw a fastball? And they're like, yeah, but he likes to work in and out with his cutter. I'm like, does he throw a 4-seam fastball? They're like, yeah. But it's he only, and I'm like, I'm out of here. I didn't want to psych myself out, because I was I was doing pretty well in AAA, had a nice hitting streak, a 15-game hitting streak. I'm like, that's all I want to know right now. This guy throws a fastball, because you think about it, you get in that moment. It's what does he do? What does he do? I just wanted to keep it simple and just be this guy's human, and he throws a fastball. So that was kind of cool. Those guys were all worked up about it. So first game ends up being against Chris Carpenter in St. Louis after I get the call from my AAA manager.
So hey, take us through that first at bat, man. How did that feel? You step in the batter's box. Take us through that.
Okay, well, here is the first inning. Okay, so obviously we are the visiting team in St. Louis. I don't bat the first inning, so top of the first goes by. Bottom of the first, I go out to second base. I'm standing behind second base, right? So I'm nervous, I'm pretty nervous. So I'm used to like crowds where you look behind home plate and you have a lower concourse, right? So that's usually packed. So that's every baseball stadium. Then you got St. Louis, which is like you got the club seats and then you got upper decks, right? So I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like 45,000 people here, right? So the first grounder I get for practice in that half inning, I throw it over the first baseman's head. It goes into the Cardinals dugout. It almost hit Albert Pujols. Like he like ducks and covers, And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I look to center, I look to the outfield, and there's like 20,000 people out there. I'm like, all right. I put my head down like this and I say, don't look up the whole game. Because I was so like overwhelmed with the crowd. So I kept my hat down like this the whole game, never looked up, never looked back, just so I can make it feel like it's just a minor league game, right? So no errors in the game, okay? So that's totally fine. So I get up bottom of the second. It's first and second. I'm batting eighth. So now I'm like, all right, this guy's got to be somewhat careful. I'm the eighth hitter. The pitcher's behind me, right? First pitch, curveball, strike one. Second pitch, slider, strike two. Third pitch, fastball for a ball. And then fourth pitch, slider. I hit a one-hopper the second. So I'm running the first. I'm like, I just put a good quality at bat against Chris Carpenter, right? I'm like, whew, that's awesome, right? Second at bat comes, I'm like, 100% he's throwing me a first pitch fastball and I'm swinging because it's coming, right? First pitch fastball, ties me up, ground ball to third. Going to like the sixth inning, it's like 2-1 Cardinals. I'm facing Carpenter again. I'm like, I think he's going fastball. I think I was leading off the inning. Hit a ball to left center. Jim Edmonds starts running, right? Remember the name Jim Edmonds? Jim Edmonds dives, catches the ball midair. The crowd goes crazy. He hits the ground. I'm the only one to see this ball trickle out of his glove. And I'm like busting around first, going to second base for head first diving, into the bag. Guy gets it, swipes, tags me. I'm safe. And the guy was a Latin guy. I was like, Domino Pelota, give me the baseball, So they throw the baseball out. It was pretty cool. My family was there, like about 10 of them, and they were wearing black T-shirts, a sea of red everywhere. So they're standing up, and about 50 Cardinals fans in that area started to clap for me too. That's what my parents would tell me because they kind of knew the moment, right? They just knew that was number 66. I got a hit. So I ended up scoring. We tied the game. They ultimately, David Eckstein, inside outs a ball, passed me at second base, and I had him shifted way over. I'm like, this guy's going to hit one between first and second. I just wasn't over far enough. Gets the game when he hit in like extra innings, they win the game. So that was my first major league game in front of a sea of like 45,000 Cardinals fans against Chris Carpenter, who won the Cy Young. I got a nice little double against him in my third at bat. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
David, so this story, it couldn't be any better for me right now. And David knows why, JJ, because I am not a fan of Jim Edmonds, never have, never will be. And the fact that he dropped that ball for your first hit just absolutely makes me happy, man, because I always tell David that Jim Edmonds would just play, so shallow, and then people would hit over his head. He'd just make it look worse than it actually should have been. He was one of those kind of guys, and I'm not a fan. So the fact that your first hit was because Jim Edmonds can't catch a ball just makes my heart happy, man.
DJ, people are going to think you don't know anything about baseball. Quit talking about Jim Edmonds.
That's awesome, man. And I can't imagine, of all places too, and we know, obviously being a Cubs fan, JJ, we know that Cardinals are the big rivals, but I will give them the one thing: they got great fans.
Yeah,
and they packed that house, and for you to have your first game there, man, had to be absolutely awesome and a dream come true. And what a story, man! That's just so cool that you got to face Carpenter, and Pujols obviously was in that game, so that's really cool, man. So, who were some of your favorite teammates on the 2005 Pirates?
Yeah, I mean, I said those guys right there. Jack Wilson was awesome. Like he was a great shortstop. He was a guy that when I came in for those, 2.5, 3 weeks in September, allowed me to pick his brain. I mean, this guy is borderline, if not maybe won a Gold Glove at shortstop, and I knew how good he was. So like, just being able to like interact with, you feel like if you get called up, you feel like these guys feel like you're going to try to take their job, but it was a total opposite. Like they were there to like willing to help you. And there's like this thing in baseball, which not many people know. When you get called up, like people know, at least back in like the 90s and 2000, like it's difficult now too. It's extremely difficult. But like there was a sense of like, we've been through the whole process that you've been through, and we know how difficult this is. So when you get here, like, we want to reward you by like celebrating you and helping you even more. And we want you to stay here. We want you like, we want to buy you a suit, right? Someone bought me a suit when I was in Oakland. Like, just different things have been passed down from different generations of it. It is extremely difficult to the major leagues. And once you get there, and once you get your first big league hit, and you see it on TV all the time, people are waving for the ball and they throw the ball in. It's a special moment. So to have people there that accept you as one who is very similar to who they are, and for them to reach out and be like, hey, this is what we do to warm up, or this is how we prepare. So Jack Wilson was awesome. Freddie Sanchez was awesome. Those guys had great careers. I mean, these guys played for 10 years. Jason Bay was awesome. Played with Jose Bautista. He was a call-up that year. So, like, to watch his story was, like, unbelievable, because when we were in Pittsburgh and AAA together, like, and he's talked about this, like, his timing was just off. He fouled off so many pitches, like, back. I would never imagine he'd hit 50 home runs like he did. Obviously, he was quick. He wasn't, and I keep bringing it up, he wasn't Giancarlo Stanton or Judge size. Like, he was, maybe 6 foot, just frail, athletic type guy. Good bat speed, but he admits it, like, his timing was off, and then he mixed in like this bigger leg kick, which just changed his timing, and he had an ungodly career after he was with Pittsburgh. So, he was a great guy. He was, even in AAA, was a really nice guy to talk to and just kind of interact and talk baseball. Like, there's nothing better, guys, than like playing baseball every day, and then after the game being in the clubhouse. And this is before like internet and phones that much, and people weren't so self-absorbed in themselves, just sitting there and having a soda pop afterwards and just talking baseball, right? So
Nice.
Guys, just talk baseball, hang out in the clubhouse, especially when you're younger. When you get older, like, when I was in my 30s and stuff, the back end of my career, my wife was out there, I had kids and stuff, but like, when you don't have like that wife waiting for you or kids waiting outside the clubhouse, you just sat back and like talked the game. You talked about the pitchers, you talked about what, how you performed, what we could do tomorrow different. And then maybe you go out and shoot pool and just talk some more, shop, So there was nothing better than that, man. That was probably some of the best memories I had, was like, being a young AAA player, those first 2 to 3 years, not married, no kids, just playing the games, having success, talking baseball, getting to the clubhouse, like talking baseball, and then just competing, man. It was good memories, man. That's some of the greater memories that I remember of baseball, just those moments after the game.
That's absolutely awesome, man. And David, just so you know, he had mentioned 66, Mario Lemieux. That's a hockey player, just so you know that. Yeah, that's what we play up here in the north. So that's absolutely awesome, JJ. So transition here now to the A's, the 2007 team that you're on with the A's. Some of your favorite guys on that team. You also played, as we mentioned earlier in the show, Mike Piazza was on that team too. I forgot he was an A, but that's where he ended his career in 2007 there with the A's. So talk a little bit about the A's days.
Who was actually the guy who I talked to the most was Mike Piazza. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, like I was like a kid in a candy store half the time with this stuff, So Piazza was back in his career. They kind of stopped playing him because I think he potentially had like certain incentives in his contract, right? So I was probably in the big leagues for like 3 months, up and down a bunch. So like the last 2 months I was in the big leagues. He wasn't playing that much. When he did play, I was like his main pinch runner. Like, he'd get a hit in like late innings or something, and I'd pinch run for him, first base, second base, wherever it was at. So I'd always sit down in the dugout, and I'd sit next to him and I'd ask him questions. It seemed like other guys didn't interact with him too much, but I didn't care. I was just young. I knew who he was. Obviously, he was a great player. I'm like, tell me your best moment in baseball, Piazza. And he's like, the best moment in baseball, and you guys appreciate it because it just kind of was the anniversary. He's like, the best moment I ever had was when I was with the Mets against the Braves. Yeah. And he's like, just because just after 9/11, the crowd was so needing something just to get their minds off what just happened, right? And he's like, it's the bottom of the eighth, it was bottom of the eighth. We're losing 3-2 or losing 3-1. 2 guys are on. And then he goes, I hit this bomb to left center, and it gets out. He's like, the place went ballistic. And he's like, look, he's like, I got goosebumps now. I got goosebumps talking about the story just because, I saw it on TV the other day because it was like the 20th anniversary and they were talking about Piazza and stuff. So it was cool to ask him about that. And I was like, what happened against Clemens? He's like, I need to play 1 more year after this year because I cannot retire with Roger Clemens because of that incident in the World Series. I'm like, well, what happened? He's like, well, hit the ball and the bat went to Clemens, right? He's like, I thought Clemens grabbed the baseball and threw the baseball at me. He's like, I couldn't even comprehend in the moment what had happened when the top of the bat went to Clemens and Clemens grabbed the bat and threw it at me. He's like, I froze for like 5 seconds. He's like, but if I had to redo it, I would have charged the mound. I would have beat the crap out of like Roger Clemens. It's like, so he's like, I need to play one more year next year because we are not retiring together. I'm not going to the Hall of Fame with that guy because he's like, I hate that guy, So it's kind of cool. You're asking Mike Piazza about this stuff. And Piazza's like, you should try to go play in Japan. Like you can make a career, right? So it's funny, like we were just kind of talking and like, so that was the guy I talked to the most. Other guys on that team, Nick Swisher was on the team. Awesome guy, like I said earlier, like these guys treat you, even though you're like bottom of the 25-man roster, like if you're in the batting cage and though, like, so as a rookie, if the batting cage starts at 245 and ends at 330, well, the starters are going to be closer to that like 315 range, right? So if you're getting work in there and say it's like 305 and Nick Swisher comes in, Nick Swisher would be like, go ahead, take your time, finish your round, and then we'll come in here. But you're done with your round anyways, but it wasn't like they walked in and be like, get out of here, guys, So guys were always cool about that, like this allowing you to try to be a guy who could stay in the major league. So Swisher was awesome. Bobby Crosby was a shortstop there. Mark Ellis was a longtime second baseman for Oakland A's. Same thing, those guys would kind of just, you could pick those guys' brains. So that was kind of cool. Those are good, all the guys, everyone in the major. I never had a problem with anybody in spring training. I was in 7 major league spring trainings, right? Going from the Padres, the Phillies, the Rays, Pittsburgh, right? Don't have any stories of anyone being a total jerk, just trying to kick you out just because they got 10 years in the major league. So good teammates all around. Everyone appreciates each other. They know it's really hard to get there, and everyone tries to take care of each other.
As a Yankee fan, I got to know Swisher is a fellow West Virginian. Is he as bubbly, as crazy as he seems to be on TV? And is that his true personality, or is that a little bit put on?
Yeah, I'll say this: I played against him a lot in the minor leagues, and when you're not his teammate, you don't like him at all. Like when you seriously, I have seen this guy get hit by so many pitchers in AAA, and I've seen him get hit in the major leagues. When he is not, you could say that about all these. Like AJ Przinsky was one of those guys, right? When he's not,
that's DJ's favorite player. Yes.
Oh no.
You hear all these stories, like when they're not your teammate, you hate a lot of these guys, right? This Swisher always came off as this super cocky guy. We went to Ohio State, first rounder, always wears like, cut off t-shirts showing his like belly. Like, what is this guy, But then like when you become his teammate, like he gives you respect, right? And that's all you could ask for. And, he plays relatively hard. There's different stories of how these guys warm up. Like I was never one to go out onto the field 5 minutes before the game. I needed to take 30 minutes to throw and run and sprint. Some Bailey guys just show up, and that's how they perform, though. Some guys just show up and take 2 throws, and they're ready to play baseball. Like, that just wasn't me. But all these guys are awesome. He's bubbly. He's charismatic. Gets on your nerves if he's not your teammate. That's a fact. But when he's your teammate, he'll stick up for you, and he'll go out there and battle with you.
That's awesome.
That's awesome, man. So, JJ, you hit 100 career minor league home runs, which, man, I talk about this with David a lot too. If you would have stuck at 99, that would have been such a bummer, right? Because it's just such not a bummer. Don't get me wrong, but like when you actually get to a round number like 100 over 99, it looks different. It just does. Like there's just nothing you can't deny that. So congratulations on that. Seriously, that's awesome, man. And you also only made 1 error in your major league career, which is also unbelievable. So talk me through the last 4 years of your career in the minors. After the 2011 season, what made you go into retirement? And what is the year 2012 extremely weird with no baseball? I know that's a loaded question, but kind of talk about the end there.
Yeah, so 2007, I was with Oakland. 2008, I had the great opportunity to go play in Japan for a year. I happened to be, I'd bounced around in the major leagues a little bit with Pittsburgh. That 1 September call-up was 3 months with Oakland that year in 2007. Had a contract to go play in Japan. I got taken off the roster of the Oakland A's in 2007. So all 29 other teams had the opportunity to pick me off waivers within 72 hours. Nobody did, right? So that allowed me to become like a free agent. But then I had a lot of interest between like the Giants, the Marlins, and the Philadelphia Phillies, like decent, respectable contracts. but nothing in comparison to Japan. So it was a good financial decision maybe for me to go to Japan. It would have made it difficult if someone took me off the roster, but these teams really wanted me. So I played Japan for 1 year, came back, went with the Phillies, which probably wasn't the best decision because they just won the World Series. So they really were stacked with players and veterans. So it really made it tough for me to kind of just get in the vibe. I mean, go to spring training and a team that just wins the World Series. I mean, you're not going to knock on anyone's door. You're not going to be a player that has any chance of, being a future Philadelphia Philly, but you also can perform in AAA. Who knows what can happen from there. So getting to the back end, you got the Phillies in 2009, and then I played with the Tampa Bay Rays in 2010 and 2011, right? Had some productive years, 2010, and then 2011 just didn't get it done, right? So you're knocking on 31, 32, had a rough start, kind of got hot in the middle, had a bad end of the year. So you get to that age, man, it's like you're 31, 32, you hit 215, 220, which is, nothing to write home about. And then that's it. There's no other teams really knocking on the door. I mean, maybe had a chance to go play independent ball, but at that point, I had a child that was 2 years old and looking to just kind of finish up my undergrad and kind of move on with life, but great journey. I mean, nowadays you don't play 12 years in the minor leagues like you did back then. It's just a younger game, which is just the way the game moves. So super fortunate to play that long, had lots of opportunities to become a Major League Baseball player and opportunities even after I was in the major leagues to get called back up. Just sometimes it doesn't work out. So I won't even say father time. Just sometimes you try to put your best foot out there, and if it doesn't work out, it didn't work out. But I always told myself when I worked out and I trained, I never would be at a bar just saying I should have or I could have or I would have, and I put everything I had into it. I mean, I didn't even tell people how much I put into it. I briefly got into my college career where I'd wake up at 6 a.m, go hit 100, 200 baseballs on my own. I would go 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock by myself and, hit grounders to myself off a tennis ball machine. I'd run on a track at nighttime, I'd work out on Christmas Day. I did a lot of stuff that it was just who I was, and I could never preach that to someone else. My son's a young baseball player. I try to tell my dad, I'm like, my son is different than who I am, my son probably will never, not many people have the passion like I had, right? So he's different. He likes to play flag football. He likes baseball. He likes to do different stuff. He likes to do backflips on track, likes to do different things, which is totally fine. So just relaying it to a parent, just being like, no one's going to be like me. Like I had an unbelievable passion to just play baseball. So I had a great journey. To this day, I'm fortunate that I was able to do it. And although it feels like a lifetime, I got some good stories. So it's fun to kind of talk with. When we meet new people, we don't say much about it. We ask a lot of questions about how people are doing, and then they get into us. They're like, "What? Like you play Major League Baseball?" Because it doesn't seem like that's where we were coming from. Like you're 5'10". Like now you tell us like an hour later into the stories that you played Major League Baseball. So it's cool to meet different people and tell the stories.
That's awesome, man. So JJ, you had speaking of something that me and David are just absolutely in awe of this one for sure. Aroldis Chapman. You had an 11 pitch at bat with him in the minors when you ended up singling to right field. I watched it the other day. It was like a 4.5 minute video. That's how long it was. It's like the longest at bat ever. So is he the fastest that you ever saw? He was hitting 100. I saw they were going back and forth to the gun. I would only want one pitch against that guy. I'm not going to lie to you. Like I would swing as hard as I can one time and then probably cry to get out of the box. Cause if I ever get hit by that, I'd probably fall over and suck my thumb like a little baby. So talk me through that at bat, man. That's awesome that you got a hit off of him. So that's a great story as well. Go for it.
Yeah. So he was with the Reds as a starter, right? Remember when he came into the major leagues, he was a starter for a while. So this is his first push down to the minor leagues as a closer, right? So this is Aroldis Chapman coming as a starter from the Reds back down to the minors to get some like relief experience and some closing experience. So this is his first go around at it. So I'm the leadoff hitter. Our whole bench is on the top rail, right? Watching Aroldis Chapman pump 100 miles per hour because everyone knows like this guy's pumping 102. Their bench is up. So it's like, all right, it's like 10:30 at night here. They're winning like 3-1. And it's like, I feel like we're in the World Series here, right? So he's warming up. Obviously, big, lengthy guy, right? Huge stride. And at that moment, I was feeling confident about myself, right? Like, obviously, confidence is a huge thing, as you guys know in baseball, right? So like, if you're confident and you feel like you're in the moment, like you can compete against a lot of guys out there, I mean, I'd already faced Roger Clemens in the major leagues, right? So it's like coming off of like 3 years previously, like Roger Clemens. I already faced Chris Carpenter, who was like the Cy Young winner, right? So I have some guys that I faced here that are like legendary pitchers, I don't know Rollis Chapman's future, but I know he throws 100, right? So battling, fouling off. I get him like 2-2. Now we're like, 8 pitches in. He throws like a back foot slider. It doesn't hit my foot, but I pretend it does. I'm like holding my ankle because I'm like, I want to get the first base here. It's been 8 pitches, like if that hit my foot, umpire wasn't buying it, So I'm battling, get to like 3-2. We're at like pitch like 12. I feel like it ended up being like a 15 pitch at bat. Get a base hit, like a fish job over second baseman's head. So I'm pumped, I facing the guy throwing 100. We end up winning the game. We end up getting like 3 runs off him. So it was a cool experience to be the first guy of that game facing a guy throwing 100 miles per hour. Try to do the old okey doke on the back foot slider hitting the foot, but then I got in the base hit. So that was cool.
Well, I got to ask, when you said Roger Clemens, I just derailed off this conversation. So what was that like facing Roger Clemens? We just went a whole other direction here.
Yeah. So this is pretty cool too. Okay. So this is 2005. I have about 8 at bats in the major leagues, right? So I think I'm about 2 for 8 at this point. So I get to face Roger Clemens, and we got like 5 runs against Clemens in the first inning, right? So I'm at Pittsburgh. We're obviously the home team. So we're winning 5-0, and I'm batting 8th. So I get up into the box. I dig in. Look up at Roger Clemens. I'm talking about this guy's huge, right? So he's like 6'4", like huge broad shoulders. I'm like, all right, here we go, Roger Clemens. No joke. He throws the ball about 100 miles per hour right at my left ear. I fall to the ground. To this day, I'm going to find the video because I need to archive some stuff. I feel like I'm Moonlight Graham here, that I have 8 at-bats here, and it's like I looked at Roger Clemens the wrong way. I didn't wink or anything. Roger Clemens throws the ball 100 miles per hour at my head. I dive to the ground. Ball goes to the backstop. I get up. Roger Clemens is like 5 feet in front of my face telling the umpire, like, give me this effing ball with like boogers out of his nose. I'm like, what's going on here? Like I'm facing Roger Clemens. He tries to hit me like I'm Moonlight Graham. I'm wearing 66. I'm like, this guy's trying to take me out, I get Roger Clemens 2-0. I'm like, all right. So I step out of the box. I'm like, and this is 2005. So this is before Roger Clemens guy was implicated in any type of like, performance enhancing stuff. I'm like, if I hit a home run against Roger Clemens in like my 9th major league at bat, I'm like, send me to heaven here. You know what I mean? So Roger Clemens comes set. As soon as he takes the ball out of his hand, I start to swing because I'm just trying to hit this ball to like the left field foul line because I know it's a fastball. I know it's coming right now. I'm cheating. So I'm like leaning forward as I make contact, hit a grounder to first base. No joke. I'm like smiling ear to ear. I just tried to cheat on Roger Clemens. I tried to get the head out 2-0 against Roger Clemens because he was going to be a future like Hall of Famer, 5 Cy Youngs. And I'm facing Roger Clemens. I got him 2-0, 8 at bats. Like, why not? Like, let's go deep, So that was a cool story, man. Awesome. I tried, man. I tried so hard to go deep. Oh, I was like, and to this day, I was like, I loved every moment of it because like before he threw the ball, I was swinging because I was not going to get cheated, man. So it was cool.
So any idea why he threw at you? Because obviously, he's a major league pitcher. That wasn't an accident, right?
Here's why. Because he was facing Pittsburgh, which we weren't that good at that point. And he had recently, I believe, lost his like father-in-law or mother-in-law. And he's losing 5-0 in the first inning. He was not happy, right? He was just fucking pissed. And by the time he wanted to take it out on somebody, I happened to be the guy who was wearing 66, who was about to maybe get a hit off him, or who was going to try to cheat and hit a home run off him, right? So he knew that enough's enough. I need to kind of scare somebody and get these guys off the box because it's 5-0 first inning against the Pirates, who are 30 games under 500. He's like, I ain't having any of this. So, that was a good one, man. I tried so hard to go deep, man. But to this day, man, that guy was huge. He was like looking me down. You think just a bull, this Texas bull, man. When I was looking at that guy, and he was huge, man. I was trying to get him so bad.
So
Wow.
other than Nolan and Ryan, I think the two scariest. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think there's four scary guys that have ever pitched. Well, I'm extending that as I think of it. Roger Clemens. You always think of Bob Gibson. You always think of Randy Johnson. You always think of Aroldis Chapman. Like those are the guys that like would scare you to absolute death if you were to face them. And you got to face two of those guys. So that's really cool, man. That's an awesome story. So JJ, what is your favorite MLB ballpark that you played at? David, listen very close on this one.
Yeah, I would say numero uno is going to be Wrigley Field, man. I was, born and raised in this area. Got a chance to start at shortstop against the Chicago Cubs, right? First inning, got a backhand against Nomar, threw him out of first base. Second inning, facing Mark Pryor in 2005, right? I'm like, it's like second pitch, same thing. I'm like, I'm not getting cheated here. I like reach out and I flick one over shortstop's head. I'm like, I'm at first base. I'm like, I just made a backhand against Nomar in the first. I got a hit in the second. I'm like, this has got to be Iowa, man. This has got to be heaven here. You know what I mean? So that was by far the coolest place to be, just because I was born and raised. I was a Cubs fan. I was a big Ryan Sandberg guy. You used to come home from school, put on Channel 9, and the game was on, right? That was just what you did when you were like, grade school, middle school, and across the country, right? People would put on Channel 9 and watch the Cubs. So that was kind of cool, man, to be at. I mean, to this day, like I remember being at Wrigley. Before the game, I went to center field, man, and I just was like touching the ivy at center field, and I looked back at the main concourse in the press box, and I could not believe I was like on the field about to play a Major League Baseball game at Wrigley Field. And to this day, I remember like it was yesterday, like just standing in center, looking back, and just absorbing that I was in Wrigley Field, man. It was by far the coolest moment ever. And to this day, I'll never forget that. So that was the best place to ever be.
So did you ever get to play at Yankee Stadium?
No, I missed that one. I was kind of bummed about that because I played at Fenway. And then, so when I was with Oakland, our road trip was Fenway, Tampa. So I wish it was Fenway, New York, which makes sense. But I think New York was maybe matched up with like Toronto, right? And this would have been old Yankee Stadium. So I was so bummed that it just missed when I was called up and not called up, because I played at Wrigley, got a chance to play at Fenway, and to be at old Yankee Stadium would have been the icing on the cake, man.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. JJ, so you got a funny story or two from the playing days?
Oh, wow, man. We kind of get into some of these here, right? So cool stuff, man. I mean, when you're a rookie, man, they do all kinds of stuff to you, right? So Pittsburgh, rookie, it's like rookie initiation day, right? You get back after the game, get to day game. It's about 5:00. You go to your locker room. You're looking for your suit. Your suit's gone, right? Next thing all you know, you have this Hooters outfit in your locker room, So like, what are you supposed to do with this, So all the rookies, right? So there's like 10 of us. You got to put on the Hooters, like tank top and the Daisy Dukes, right? Here's the worst story, right? 99% of the time, we take like chartered planes, right? Where you just go on the bus and you go straight to your plane, and your plane is private. Well, of course, this trip that we're going to Los Angeles from Pittsburgh, we have to go to Pittsburgh's airport. So we're walking around with Hooters outfits on in the main airport, and people are like, what the hell is going on with these 10 guys in Hooters outfits, Yeah, so you fly the plane. So now you get in the plane, right? So you're chartered, right? But you still have to go through the main concourse. Well, these guys, 1 mile before we get to the hotel in LA, they drop us off on the streets. Now we're walking to the hotel in our Hooters outfits with wigs, man. That's a night. I mean, there was not crazy stories, but like those are some of the fun stories that, as a rookie, they do to you. And everything's in good faith, right? It's not like they're massively embarrassing or making you walk around without clothes, but that was a good, funny one where you're a rookie and you got to walk through the airport in Hooters outfits just because that's what they did,
That's absolutely awesome, man. That's really cool. JJ, you probably don't make a very pretty girl. I'll just leave that at that. All right, man. So talk about life now, man. So you have a lovely wife and 2 kids. What's JJ up to these days, buddy?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier a question about 2012. Was that, unique experiences being out of baseball, right? Initially, it was like a relief, man. Like a relief in regards to baseball's a tough sport. You guys know baseball's tough, right? So, I did that for, 12 years, a lot of it in the minor leagues, a lot of good days, a lot of bad days, a lot of like, just telling yourself or asking yourself, like, can you do this? Am I good enough to do this? Can I get to the next level? Right. An 0 for 8 can turn into an 0 for 16, which is then like, let me go register for college type stuff. Right. So a lot of mental stress, right? You really like humble yourself. You go into this sport with always a lot of confidence. We grow up, we're in Little League, you're one of the better players, right? In middle school and high school, you become one of the better players. College, then you get put into this elite class of ball players that you're playing across the whole world, different guys, right? Really humbles you, right? So you got 10, 12 years of you like mentally going through the grind of trying to be successful. And, you're 0 for 20s, you got a chance to kind of still have a good year, right? So how do I get out of that? Or how do I keep this 6 for 8 weekend going, right? So like that grind. So 2012 was like kind of a relief of just trying to be like, wow, I don't have to go through those physical and mental struggles. I was very fortunate. I was very healthy throughout my career, minus that little hand injury I told you about. So that was a relief. But I was still involved in baseball, right? Just trying to figure out how to like bring in income for the family. I got into like coaching teams and like making money, finished my undergrad. So then obviously did that for the last like 10 years, right? And then, like I said, I had a couple little minor like sales jobs in between, primarily focusing on working on team training, helping raise 2 kids. My son is 11 now, my daughter's 6. So yeah, taking care of the family, enjoying them, play sports. I'm a very calm and collective person. So when it comes to our sports, just like we all read, being a parent's different than coaching high school baseball, right? You're going to get on guys different ways, right? Parent, just absorbing the moments, telling my son I love to watch him play. He likes baseball. He'll never, ever probably have what I had in regards to love and passion. Maybe he will, maybe he won't, but like just telling them that I like watching you play. Ask him if he wants to hit. There's times he wants to hit. There's times he doesn't want to hit, right? So, do what you want to do. So enjoying their sports careers, working with different teams, youth teams, working with camps and clinics, working Hinsdale with, former coach of yours, Brent Kittle. So things are going good. We have a little small side business as a family. We help put up like celebratory signs in front of people's houses for like birthdays and graduations and stuff like that. So just trying to figure out life in general and just kind of working with the kids. And I do that. So I like being active. My wife's like, oh, why you got so much energy all the time? But I mean, we played ball every day, right? We're baseball players, right? So we like to be outside. We like to do stuff.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome, man. So, JJ, man, I think I speak for David here. I think we could talk for like 3 hours on here.
Yeah,
no joke, man. I could probably ask you so many more questions about all that stuff, and we would love to have you on sometime in the future too. Maybe talk more about your career, or even just to talk MLB in general. So don't be shy to the podcast, man. We'd love to have you sometime in the future. We won't hound you too much. I know you're busy and everything, and but just here and there, man, if you come on, that'd be absolutely awesome. And this was an absolutely great show and an awesome time. So thank you so much for, clearing your schedule for us and coming on the show tonight, buddy.
No, I appreciate it. And I'll see you, maybe during the winter as you're kind of helping out with some of our travel baseball programs. So then maybe we can catch up. And here's my biggest fear about baseball, man. Baseball's got to get through this CBA agreement that's going to happen here January 1st, right? There's a collective bargaining agreement. I wouldn't even get in this. My brother's a sports agent, and he has a lot of like Major League Baseball players he represents. Wow. One big guy being Will Smith, so he gets not too much inside information. It's just going to be a tricky situation. Just for the benefit of baseball and the benefit of like moving the game forward and keeping the interest still going, they're going to have to get through this thing, and it's going to be pretty nasty because the players, as a former player, we had a lot of power back then, right? And that used to be the thing. Players had a lot of power. They've lost a lot of power, so I don't know if that's going to work out too well for Major League Baseball's and the player union. It's going to be tricky. I'm predicting that baseball will not start until June of next year. They're going to have because the CBA ends January 1st, and spring training is like February 1st to 15th, right? I don't see him getting it done. There's a lot of like sticky situation. That's going to be a tough one, man. I hope baseball can survive because it had a hard time surviving previous strikes, and the home run contest between McGuire and Sosa brought it back. But I don't know, man. It's going to be a tougher one this year.
So just real quick, and we won't have to get in deep into this. What's the big sticking point? Because I've heard a lot of talks about the CBA and what's the problem, I guess.
Yeah, I would say like some of the main ones is going to be service time, right? So the Chris Bryant situation, right? That's a big thing that rubs people the wrong way. There's been some general managers that have went on like podcasts and being like, we're not calling up these guys because although they're top prospects, we need to like. So they're verbally saying they're not bringing players up. Player union does not like that. Another big thing is what's the salary caps of some of these teams, right? Here's the tough part. Tampa Bay is going one route, showing that they can have a low salary and being super competitive, right? Well, that doesn't bode well for free agents, right? Like 6 years to be a free agent, right? That's the number now. Well, unfortunately, statistics are saying when you get to your free agency years, the Albert Pujols contracts, those are no good. Like these are no good. There's just too much of a history of these late 30-year-olds signing like 8-year, 10-year deals. Great for the players, not good for the organizations, right? So those are not happening as much, right? You're getting a lot of these play or organization friendly contracts. The Acuna's that signed for 8 years, $100 million, and he's one of the best players in baseball, right? So the players have lost potentially the ability to like continue to make money as time has gone by. Like we're like the average salaries are losing. So this is just, as a player and the player union side, like we've lost the ability to like maximize income for our players, right? They always don't want the DH. Like the players usually don't want the DH because then it takes the extra utility guys out of the picture, right? So it just sets up the one DH player and then you have the utility players, right? So those are some of the sticking points. And then the owners being owners where it's going to be like the pandemic cost us $100 million. We don't want ever a salary cap, or we want to keep like, look at the Cubs. They dumped all their players. They're not going to pay anybody. Everyone's going to go watch the Cubs for the next 5 years because it's unique stadium and people love the atmosphere. So now they're going to put out product where they had a high payroll, say $200 million. They're going to cut it to like 150 and then 125. And then they're just going to keep pecking it down because people will show, but the product won't be there. Players union, we don't want that. Like we want competitive teams out there on a regular basis. We don't want these teams like the Orioles continue to like, be 50 games under 500. Like there needs to be a threshold to put a competitive team out there. So that's some of the sticking points. And, you get the owners, you got the players. So it's going to be a tough one, man. It's been a long time since the last agreement. And then obviously they had the disagreement during the pandemic, how many games should be played, right? The players wanted 80 to 90. The owners wanted just 60. Then they got the extra playoff game that rubbed them the wrong way too. So it's going to take a while, I believe. So it's going to be a tough one.
Man, I hope they can come to some agreement. I've heard some great ideas. I love the idea of a salary floor. I think that's a phenomenal idea. And then I heard an idea too that I thought was cool where you would automatically achieve free agency, I think at 28 or 29. I don't know if you've heard that proposal out there. And so that would be an incentive to call up players earlier, not to let them rot down in the minor leagues. So anyway, I hope for baseball's sake that they can work all this stuff out.
Yeah, for sure. Me too. I mean, obviously, it's the last thing baseball needs is something that's extended. I mean, I feel like it can obviously be at least a month because you have January 1st until February 5th or 15th. But you start getting the spring training. Each day you get into spring training, it just pushes back to the start of the season because pitchers need to get ready,
Yep.
So, but everyone's stubborn, right? Owners are stubborn. Commissioners are stubborn. People have a lot of bad things to say about the commissioners. That's not a good thing. It's going to get nasty. So, just got to hope for the best for baseball's sake, because people, baseball gets a bad rap of obviously being a sport that's lower pace, and it's a fast paced society we live in. So this would be rub people the wrong way that baseball players that are multimillionaires, owners that are multimillionaires, that they can't figure something out.
Yeah,
man. Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen. Hoping that we're rolling April 1st, but I've heard bad things too. So not good. I guess what we can say out of this is enjoy this playoff run this week. Enjoy the playoffs this coming year, because as we know, with all the crazy stuff going on in the world too, baseball just can't be taken for granted, and actually life can't be taken for granted. So thanks a lot, JJ, very much for coming on, man. And David, we're gonna call this Frenemies this week, but we're working on a new name because JJ, our name, like, to YouTube us, it's some diva channel or something like that. I don't even know. So it's not working not a good look for us. So we're working on changing the name here, but look us up and we'll definitely be sharing this one. This was an awesome podcast. So share this one, like it, and definitely check us out. Thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Appreciate it, guys.